Hey, what's going on, guys? Fizz here once again. It has been a bit. So first, I guess, let me start by saying there was a pretty big gap in my previous uploads, especially when you're not including the last build diaries boss kills. It's a bigger gap than there ever has been on this channel ever since I started putting out content. So I want to say sorry for that for people who are looking forward to my videos. Basically, the 3.18 reveal, if you can go back and watch the live stream, it's up on YouTube, kind of left me feeling a little bit demotivated. So I was still streaming consistently, but I just didn't have it in me to make videos. So sorry for that. Videos will start being consistent again from here on. I just had to get over the hill of making the first one. So with that out of the way, what is this video? This video is going to be basically my day 1 and 2 impressions of 3.18. Were my predictions correct? All sorts of stuff like that. Also, don't mind background. My standing desk is activated, so it's a little bit different than usual in the webcam, but I'm just standing up, which doesn't happen often. So I guess first things first, I'm going to go over Sentinel because I want to touch on the good things first before I totally rip apart this patch. Sentinel, I think, is getting a lot of unfair hate. I actually really like Sentinel. This is going to come down a lot to, I think, the type of player that you are. So the way that I like to play the game is I like to just, when I'm mapping, I like to map. I hate league mechanics that force me to stop. I hate league mechanics that cause me to interact with menus while I'm mapping. I think isolated mechanics like Heist, even though I don't personally enjoy Heist, I think the mechanic is fine. Isolated mechanics like Delve, things where you can go and do as like an alternative to mapping, I think those are great. I think those are really cool. And that's a little bit separate. I guess Synthesis League would also fit into that category. But for like simple, this fits extra juice into my my character's experience and progression, I really like Sentinel. It's very non-intrusive. You don't really have to micromanage at all. I guess the biggest downside of Sentinel League, if I had to pick one, Apex, the yellow one, is pretty useless. The blue one is kind of hard to use, a little bit clunky. And the red one is basically the entire league mechanic. It's better than the other two combined, and it's not even close. So 90% of the time, I only care about the red ones. The whole, like, it takes 4 inventory slots and all sorts of stuff like that. That's kind of a meme to me because realistically, I only care about the red one. I pick up blue ones sometimes, but I use them less frequently just because there's less of an opportunity to, excuse me, especially in hardcore where it's just, there's like a slight delay, even with a bunch of cast speed spec and everything, when you hit it before it shoots the beam. So you'll see it use like things like strong boxes and stuff like that, where you have a second to like prime it before the mobs actually spawn. But outside of that, I don't use it a whole lot. The red Sentinel is just kind of like a pop it at the start or the end of a map, get a bunch of free loot, and it's super cool. I don't have to like interface with menus or like put down pylons or follow a crack along the ground. I just get to run, and it just augments the monsters that are already there. And it's just, like I said, very, very non-intrusive. It's very like conducive to how I like to play the game when I'm mapping. I like to just go, and I don't like to stop. It ruins like my flow. So yeah. Sentinel, I think, is getting a lot of hate because of the other changes in the game. I think Sentinel by itself is actually a really good league mechanic, excuse me. Just very basic, but I think especially if it goes core, hopefully it does. If it goes core and then gets a little bit of changes, as every league typically needs to do when it goes core, gets a few changes and then gets put on the Atlas tree, so we can kind of like control it a little bit more in terms of outcomes, like being able to spec more into like only a certain Sentinel. Just being able to throw that Apex Sentinel on all my maps for the rest of time, I would be very satisfied with that. It's not like people worry about like the macro keys or the function buttons you have to use to spawn them if you keep the default keybinds. At least I assume that's the default keybinds because that's what mine defaulted to. It's really not bad. It's not bad at all. And especially on I think I misspoke earlier, I said Apex. The Stalker is the red one. Especially with the Stalker Sentinel, you can just click it because it's out for so long, and you'll hit all the mobs you need before it despawns and everything. You can just click it. You don't even need to use the function key to spawn it. If you're curious on how to like properly set up your Sentinel, or like the tree you should take or things like that, I would honestly just recommend going and watching Grimrow's video on it. He's tested it way more than I have, and I basically just ripped his tree one for one. Minus like one or two things that I thought were a little bit rippy for hardcore, but other than that, it's like fine. I would just go watch Grimrow's video. It's gonna teach you a lot more than I can in this little tiny review. Moving on from Sentinel, patch 3.18. So like I alluded to earlier, the 3.18 reveal is on my channel, and it was the last bit of content that was on this channel before this video goes up. I was really hyped for the first half until they got to the part where they talked about the Archnemesis rework, and when they said there were no balance changes at all. So this is something I've been very vocal about, like on my Twitch stream and on Twitter, but I haven't really talked about it on YouTube for the YouTube folks. So this is stuff that's very tired for me personally, because I've talked about it for hours and hours and hours on end, but I've never actually documented it with a video. So what do I think? I think that this is a skeleton crew league. I think it's a very basic league with not a lot of work or thought put into it. Chris said himself, if I recall correctly, I could be wrong here, please don't take this as gospel, he said like one dev was basically in charge of all the Archnemesis reworks. So this wasn't like there were a ton of people working on this. I can only assume that they were focusing, like they're trying to push really hard now. Excuse me. They're trying to push really hard on like PoE 2. That is the only like conclusion that I can come to when I try to think about how and why this happened. First and foremost, one, a lack of balance changes or content being advertised to me as content. It is not a product. It is not a feature when you advertise a lack of something to me. That does not make me feel good. It makes me feel like you think I'm stupid and I'm being lied to. That's how I feel. There were a lot of naysayers, especially on Twitter, that were like, it's just an experiment, bro. You don't understand. They don't want to rock the boat too much because it's such a drastic change. There is literally zero reason that they could not include balance changes in this patch to a bunch of things. Exactly, I guess in like the laziest way would be to just throw it into an algorithm like they did last patch, where everything, a bunch of spells got a 50% buff. There's no way that wasn't an algorithm, because then you have things like Essence Drain that got like 0.8 additional on hit damage, which no human being would ever like consciously code into the game or change. You know what I mean? Like the numeric changes were like obviously fell through in the algorithm, exactly like how they do their patch notes and all sorts of stuff like that. So there's literally zero reason why that couldn't also have happened this patch, especially for melee. There's a lot of things that blow my mind that were still in the game when this was being advertised as a quality of life league. When I say that, I mean things like Fortify being in the state it's in. Honestly, I was a little bit the big thing, I think this was in my melee video, but the big thing that really stuck out to me last league was when the Fortify was still messed up, and then one of the devs posted on Reddit that everything looked fine to them. Looks fine to us. Are you guys sure you're not doing something wrong? That was like the attitude there, and I was like, yeah, I'm sure that I'm not doing something wrong. Fortify is still unbelievably fucked. Like Earth Shatter Zerker is the only build I've played that hasn't had issues with Fortify. I'm sure there's a few other builds, but of builds that I have personally played. So Fortify being still in its current state is mind-boggling, that by the end of this league, we will have 9 months of melee's, primary defensive layer that is supposed to help it be melee is dysfunctional and hardly works. Moving on from that, the marks on monsters, I'm sure you've noticed this if you've played a decent amount of time. It's a very common, I would say, bug. I don't think it's intended. A monster will mark you because marks are now infinite, right? However, when it dies, the mark doesn't go away. Now, this doesn't happen all the time, which is why I think this is a bug. It happens about 50% of the time, but it's common enough where you should run into it just leveling. Like running through the axe, you should encounter this multiple times. So it's a very, very, very common bug. So the monster will mark you, it'll die, the mark stays on you. Now, here's the thing. In a lot of cases, if you detonate the corpse of the monster, if you remove the corpse somehow, the mark will get removed off your character. Which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I can't believe that they're like, that this wasn't fixed. A lot of things like this, it doesn't really make sense to me why this is being advertised as quality of life. There's a lot of massive quality of life features I would love to have in this game. And certain things like releasing bandits, them moving the button, that is cool. That is a very minor quality of life change. I don't think that's changes like that are enough to, you know, advertise this as a huge quality of life league. Just like, I think the lack of changes is not a reason to advertise that to me as you're doing me a favor. I think that's very disingenuous. Did not like that at all. Now, moving on from that, let's talk about Archnemesis. So I said this from the start. I don't remember if this was documented on the YouTube or not, but if you've spent any amount of time in my stream, you guys know I've been talking about this ad nauseum at this point. Everyone, basically what I've been saying for the past few weeks since the reveal, past 2 weeks, I guess, is if you are a player who is comfortable playing softcore and hardcore, like for me, I just can't derive, excuse me, I cannot derive enjoyment from playing softcore. So I play hardcore no matter what, even when I know this is going to be a clusterfuck. Excuse me, let me take a drink. Had a granola bar. Anyway, so I knew it was going to be a clusterfuck. And I played hardcore anyway because it's what I always do. But for players that are comfortable playing both, and you can derive enjoyment from both, I was recommending everyone to play softcore. Play softcore. Play softcore SSF. Play softcore trade. Doesn't matter. If you're a player that can have enjoyment from both game modes, even if it's slightly less than softcore, do that. Because this was going to be a disaster. And I was right. And I don't think you need to be a genius to know that this was going to, you know, be a just absolute shit show. Like, I don't think it was a profit or anything. I think most people could just come to that conclusion based on how GGG tends to release stuff and based on how absolutely ridiculous Archnemesis was. So there have been a lot of people that have been going over this. I do want to say, first and foremost, before I delve into any of this, after the changes, some of the changes were good. They're going to continue balancing. They need to. I've seen people saying that now it's in a good spot. It is absolutely not in a good spot. We take, because when people are saying it's in a good spot, they're taking it in isolation, right? Well, I'm going through maps now and I'm not getting absolutely railed like I was before. It feels better. It's in a good spot. This is not true because now interacting with league mechanics is still really hard. It's still insanely hard in hardcore too. And I would imagine in softcore as well, especially on League Start, it's insanely hard to interact with Essence. It's insanely hard to interact with Heist. It's insanely hard to interact with like any league mechanic. Because when you take these Archnemesis monsters and you put a bunch of like league mechanics on top of them that were already previously kind of overtuned, it makes it absolutely ridiculous. So I do not think it's in a good spot currently. I think it is much better than it was on day one. I don't think they're anywhere remotely near done for this to be a good core game experience. I'm also speaking from a point of view of playing one of the absolute best builds, the absolute best build in my opinion, in HCSSF, which is Detonate Dead Necromancer. I typically try to stray away from super meta stuff on League Starts, but again, as I've said, if you go back and watch the patch note reading and all sorts of stuff like that on the channel, there was nothing else to do. Like, anyone who didn't start something meta, especially in hardcore this league, I don't know what they were thinking, to be honest. But yeah, like, I can't imagine doing like build diaries and doing like those fun off meta wacky builds. Like a great example, Lacerate Glad, literally unplayable this patch. It was hard. It was like really hard to pull it off in HCSSF last league. This league, that type of stuff would be unplayable, like unplayable. They took a game that's already suffering from like massive balance issues in terms of like skill viability and things like this, and they managed to like narrow the scope even more, which is something that I've been screaming about literally since the day of the patch reveal. So I don't want this video to be too long. I've already been talking for 15 minutes. So I'm going to try to get through the last few of my points and not ramble too much. But basically, day one, I was furious. So I did die day one, about 11-ish hours in. I died in Summit. The clip will be up as a separate, like, little, like, 30-second snippet or whatever, sometime after this video goes up on YouTube. I was furious. I was actually, like, malding all day. I was crying all day about how bad this was. I was super annoyed. And I was trying to show people how ridiculous it was, and then I died. while trying to showcase it, and I was just so mad. And then I made a statement. I was like, I'm not going to play the game. I'm not going to stream the game. I'm not going to make content for the game until changes are implemented. This is absolutely ridiculous. So Summit, if you don't know, it's the map where there's like snowy and all that stuff, and then it has the Aberrath boss fight where you like fight the goat halfway through his life pool. He'll jump away, and then you have to run through that corridor. When you run through that corridor, every single goat that jumps down is magic or rare. So there were like 50 Archnemesis monsters chasing me through a corridor, and then I don't know if it was Bone Breaker or Arcane Buffer or what. There was way too much shit going on there to see. But basically I got like chain stunned, and by the time I gave up and tried to log out, it was too late. I instantly died. I mean, it was like a just straight one shot. That was incredibly frustrating. I was livid. Not even like, when things like that happen, I'm not mad that I died. I'm mad that something like that is even capable of happening in the video game. You know what I mean? Like, there's always a bunch of stupid stuff that happens on League Start. This League Start Act 8 Doedry was bugged. There was like, I was calling it the Great Filter, because a top 50 announcement of death was happening like every 20 seconds. The amount of people that died between 53 and 56, well over into double digits. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was like death, 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 death. Like, it was crazy. As soon as I passed Act 8, because I started a little bit late. As soon as I passed Act 8, I went from like rank like 80 overall to like rank 40 overall. It was like it was so funny. I just crawled over so many corpses. So Act 8 Doedry is bugged, and then Act 9 Malagara was bugged. I'm sure you guys have seen that. That was on the front page of Reddit. So just a lot of bullshit bugs do happen, usually at the expense mostly of hardcore players. Like, and again, I get the argument of like, well, you decided to play hardcore. I did. I don't feel like I should be overly punished for just the way I like to have fun. Which is typically the argument that I like to default to when people say, you know, self-inflicted issue. Just like I don't think because I play hardcore, I need to spend the next 3 months only playing DD, Explosive Arrow, or Seismic Trap. You know, at the end of this league, we will have had 15 months of Seismic Trap being a triple S tier meta build, which is just ridiculous to me considering they haven't been puffing up or fixing underutilized things either. And then on top of that, no new skill gems for 9 months, with the exception, I would say, of Explosive Concoction and Tornado. However, Tornado is a utility skill. It is kind of cool, but it basically is just new Hydrosphere since Hydrosphere got nerfed. That's realistically what it is. Aside from that, Poison's Concoction is a nice new skill gem. Everything else they released were like, it was like link skills and stuff like that, which, like, let's be completely honest, nobody is utilizing that. No one's using Energy Blade, things like that. Like, we haven't had anything new in a really long time. They haven't been buffing stuff up. Things are incredibly stale. If you guys want to see, actually, short sneak peek, these are my build diary lists. I was so desperate to find something. I made a skill gem list as well of like just things that look remotely kind of interesting that maybe I might play and try to do a build around. But overall, I'm like scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of builds. League Start DD, RF and Quiz with Legacy of Fury. I didn't get to do that last league. The Phantasmal Cremation build, some type of slam build with a helmet. Cyclone Shockwave Slayer. I wanted to do this last league, but I didn't have time. Absolution, SRS, probably Popcorn. Specters, Make ED Contagion great again. Medga. Glacial Cascade. I already POB'd some of this stuff. Blade McFlurry, Death South, Molten Strike Omni. Just because Molten Strike, not really because of Omni. Bladefall, Blade Blast, Occultist, Poison. I did play this on stream. I didn't make a build diary for it at the end of last league, but I didn't really get to min-max it. And then Self-Cast, Exsanguinate Scion. A lot of these are repeat builds I've done before, but I just scraping the bottom of the barrel, especially with how the rare rework has gone. 90% of those builds probably aren't even viable to be played in this current patch. So in terms of builds, I realistically don't know what's going to happen with the build diaries. I might just focus on other content for this league. Educational stuff revolving maybe around specifically hardcore, survival tactics, crafting gear, maybe some stuff like that. there are, in my opinion, like creators who have done that stuff better, but you know, for people who enjoy the way that I explain things, maybe that'll help some people. Some people will be looking forward to that. But that's kind of like my plan so far. Overall, Sentinel's a good league. The Archnemesis rework is a disaster, as we all expected it to be. The doubling down of the devs is worrying, but not surprising. I've seen a lot of people saying that like people are overreacting. I don't think so at all. I think this is ridiculous. As someone who has been one of GGG's like staunchest defenders, I've been called a shill a lot in the past. I think the past few leagues and the decisions made on a lot of things have been questionable at the very best. I've been trying not to be too overly negative, but honestly, a lot of this stuff is just ridiculous. It's like I've said a lot in the past videos now. The base game, like the base reason to play the video game is for fun. If things aren't fun, what's the fucking point? I'm starting to really get over the whole old head attitude of these super old, the game has to be this way because this is how D2 was type thing. Like, I was mauling at my phone. I was yelling at my phone. I didn't stream Bay Class because I overslept past the start time, but I was watching it off stream. And when Chris was like, when they brought up new skills and build viability, Chris is like, well, D2 hasn't gotten balance changes in years and people still play that all the time. And it's like, we're not playing D2, dude. D2 like stopped getting development because they released a sequel. It's a completely different situation. That is not like, you don't look to that and use that as an excuse to like not upkeep your own game. That was like such a ridiculous statement to me. So I'm super getting over that. Like, Diablo 2 is starting to become a trigger word for me. Because I like hear that and immediately get mad now. Like if Chris is in an interview or something, if I hear Diablo, I'm just instantly mad. Like, and I love Diablo. I was playing the D2 ladder reset for the past how many weeks until you know, the patch came out, and it's not nostalgia for me. I played D2 for the first time after having played years of D3 and PoE. D2 is the newest game on that list for me, and I do enjoy it. I don't think that every change in PoE needs to be a direct, that's a nice amulet, needs to be a direct, like, one-to-one of what D2 was. It's like innovation, expansion, listening to players. Not all the time, but sometimes, like making good changes for the game, stuff like that. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to try to ramble too much. That's like my, I was going to say TLDR. It's not TLDR at all, is it? That's my initial impressions, day 1 and 2. If you guys want to see more of me, there will be videos coming out. The rip clip will be up in a little bit. Other than that, I do stream on Twitch every day. Currently, you know, league start, so I'm like streaming like 16, 20 plus hours every day with minimal sleep. So if you guys want to catch more of me, talk to me about this video, tell me that I'm wrong, tell me that I'm right, whatever, who cares. Just discuss anything. Feel free to jump into the Discord, feel free to jump into the stream. Links are always down in the description below. Feel free to tell me what you think down in the comments. Curious to see how your guys' experience was and what you think about the league overall so far. Sentinel's great. Archnemesis sucks. I'm being held against my will on something that used to be an opt-in mechanic, and now it's not even got the rewards to back it up. It's super not hardcore viable. Randomly having mobs that make you take 30% increased damage is not okay. And yeah, no new skills, no balance. Really sucks. It's going to be a really long 3 months. It's my current feelings. That's the TLDR. Thanks a bunch for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave me a thumbs up. Maybe consider subscribing if you haven't. If you didn't enjoy the video, feel free to leave a thumbs down. Tell me what you think I can do better outside of not always stuttering over the outro. And that's going to be it for me. Time to go stream. Thanks a bunch if you made it through the whole video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, everybody.